mic, check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and I'm here to talk about GameStop. I'm joking. I'm joking. I am not here to talk about GameStop. On the contrary, though, what I am here to do is I'm here to talk about some of the biggest trades that I've done so far. I want to show you guys 14 games that I traded for, right? These were games that I traded for at a combination of mom and pop shops. These are trades that were done with some of my local resellers. Um, and I think, what's the other category? Yeah, I think that was it. It was basically with mom and pop shops and local resellers. And all of these trades were done in person, right? So, and the reason why I'm kind of showcasing these trades is that I've gotten some feedback from the channel that you guys would like to know other ways of procuring retro games outside of GameStop, right? Now the thing is that I could make 101 videos, right? And the one video that I make about GameStop, for whatever reason, YouTube's algorithm might push that video farther, which means that even some of my regular subscribers, if I make other types of content, you just won't see it if YouTube doesn't push that content to you. And now I understand why most content creators ask their subscribers to um, click the bell for notifications, because if you don't click the bell for notifications, you're pretty much just going to be subject to whatever YouTube decides to send your way. But if you do click the bell for notifications, you'll see everything I post, my edited videos, videos that I make when I'm repairing a Game Boy Color game. You'll catch my just other topics that I might talk about that might not even be video game related. So, if you want to be able to see, the full scope of everything I talk about on the channel, perhaps clicking the notification bell might benefit you. If you don't want to, that's fine. I don't typically ask anyone to click a notification. In fact, I don't think I've ever asked you guys to click a notification bell on this channel ever. And I've been on YouTube for 5 years, and I don't think I've ever asked that. I've seldom asked anyone to subscribe, because this is a subscribe at your own risk type of channel, right? If you subscribe and you watch, that's your own doing. You're doing that at your own peril. But I did kind of want to show this just for those who might be interested, but YouTube just isn't showing you those videos. So without any more jabbering or blabbering, I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. The first game we're going to talk about is Raiden Project on the PlayStation 1. This is the only long box jewel case PlayStation 1 game that I have in my collection, but it is a decent shooter, right? It's a decent top-down shoot 'em up, or cave shooter as some might call it. It has a couple Raiden games on it. Raiden isn't like my favorite franchise for shoot 'em ups. I would say my favorite Raiden game might be Raiden 4 on the Xbox 360. They also came out with a Raiden Makido remix for the Switch and I think PS4. But typically I'm not a huge Raiden guy. But I will get them because they're decent shoot 'em ups. They're classic. Raiden is right there with like the Gradius collection of games, the R-Types of the world. They're old school. So this is one that I traded for at one of my local mom and pop shops. That takes in this mom and pop. They take in a lot of like, the lower tier 360 stuff. So when I'm ready to do a flush out of my collection, I'll take a lot of my like $5 to $15 360 games that I'm no longer playing or interested in. I'll take them to one of my local shops that gives me a decent value for it, and I'll trade those away, use the store credit, and pick up games like this. So this is one game that I actually picked up this year, and I'm only showing you trades that I've done so far this year. And these aren't even all the trades that I've done this year. I could get into trades that I've done over the last 12 months, but it'd be a lot of trades. So I'm just going to show a few. I've only got a few games. So Raiden is one. We have another one here, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. So this wasn't so much of a trade as it was, I actually was able to so this one is kind of ties into GameStop, because this was a dude who was selling a bunch of games to GameStop one day. He showed up, I was buying games, and he was getting ready to sell them all this stuff. And I pretty much stopped him and said, the employee that was there, I was cool with it. I know a lot of employees don't let you do this, but long story short, I made the guy an offer. I said, listen, I'm willing to offer you some money for your whole bulk. It was a whole lot of games. And I bought the entire lot knowing that I would be trading a good chunk of the games away. And I've already traded majority of those games away. But what I spent on the lot is equivalent to what this copy of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure costs, or at least at the time what it cost. Because I think at the time this was like a $250 game. I don't know what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure on the PlayStation 1 goes for now, but it was an extremely clean, as you can see, an extremely clean copy of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for the PS1. And so I got this in basically a bulk lot, and I just took this game. This one stayed in my collection, and I sold off all the other games. Well, traded the other games, and used them as trade bait to get some of the other games that you're going to see in this bunch here. So this is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Then this is a semi-recent pickup. I think I picked this up during the month of May. The beginning of the month, I took a bunch of PlayStation 4 games to a mom and pop game store. And I basically took the store credit, and as part of one of the games that I got with the store credit was this copy of Chocobo's Dungeon 2. Funny enough, I did see this on GameStop's website for 28 bucks. I think the store had it for like 80 bucks. Now, I don't know if GameStop's version is going to be complete or not, but imagine paying 80 bucks for this at a mom and pop shop when GameStop has it for 28. And if it's complete, that kind of tells you why I do the GameStop deals. But again, this video is not about GameStop. This was a trade pickup, not a bad pickup. Next one here. So this was another one that was done at the very beginning of the year. I traded away some Wii games to a local reseller. I had some Wii games and some items that I was getting rid of, and I bought this as well as a few other games. This is actually a sealed copy of Folklore on the PlayStation 3. This is kind of like an action RPG game on the PlayStation 3. I actually had this game. I had an unsealed version of this game. I think I still have that copy. But I think I just picked this game out because of everything that he had to trade. This one was the one that made the most sense. So this was another trade with a local reseller. Then you have Castlevania Lament of Innocence. So I had this in my collection a long time ago, traded it away. It was a part of a major trade that I did to pick up Last Resort on the Neo Geo. So I did a trade with a local reseller, and this was kind of like a throw-in to kind of make the values of our trade equal. And so to equalize the trade, I asked him for this copy of Lament of Innocence, and I'm glad I did, because this is actually a really good game. Not an expensive game at all. Lament of Innocence is like 20 bucks, but this is a pretty clean copy, I want to say, of the game that I got. And he was really cool reseller too. Really cool, does decent deals. We've done a few deals. And I'm going to show you more deals that I've actually done with that reseller here in a second. But this was a local trade that I did. That's how I picked up Lament of Innocence. Now we have a heavy hitter here. So boom, Silent Hill 3. So this was a trade that I did at the very beginning of the year with another local reseller. Traded away a bunch of like those standard Nintendo games, right? So like the Zelda Skyward Swords on the Wii, Super Mario All-Stars, a lot of those games that maybe collectors don't go crazy over, but resellers love because they sell fast and they sell easy for them. So I kind of know which games in my collection resellers will love, and it's usually the more common and easy to sell Mario games or Nintendo games. So I traded away a bunch of that stuff, also a bunch of N64 games that I knew I was easily going to find again anywhere. Like, certain N64 games, certain Super Nintendo games, you can always find them all the time. So I traded those away and used that credit to get Silent Hill 3. This is complete. This is a very good condition. I did have to do a case swap on this one though. The case on this one originally was damaged, but I did do a case swap. This is the complete Silent Hill 3. It does come with the soundtrack, the game, and a minty fresh manual, as you can see there. So this is another really good trade deal that I did at the beginning of the year. We have a mom and pop shop trade. So this was Skies of Arcadia. So I had taken a bunch of I'm gonna say maybe 2 months into the year, I had a war chest. If for those of you who follow the channel, you'll remember I was building a war chest in the beginning of the year, and that war chest was primarily made up of free games that I had gotten from GameStop. There was a point like towards the end of last year where every time I would walk into GameStop, they would have a bin of like games for free. Now these weren't all bangers. Most of the time they were sports games. I could count on one hand how many of those free games were actually good. One of the free games that I got was a copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the GameCube, so that was a good one. And then another good one that I didn't get why they didn't accept it was a limited run PS3 copy of Oddworld Abe's Odyssey for the PlayStation 3. Or maybe it wasn't Abe's Odyssey. Maybe it was something. It was an Oddworld game that had come out by limited run, and my assumption is that it just wasn't in their inventory list. So that was a free game, and I took that. Those were the two that I kept out of the free bin, but I had taken an entire box of basically free games that I had gotten there to the local mom and pop shop and got a bunch of trade-in credit. And I think I only had to throw like an extra $10 on top to get this copy of Skies of Arcadia Legends. And I actually got a discount on this one at the store too, because there was like damage on the original case, but I know I had extra cases at home, so I did a case swap. And that was how I was able to get this copy of Skies of Arcadia Legends. This is one that I've always wanted on the GameCube for a while. I have it on the Dreamcast as well. But there are certain RPGs, like certain RPGs, especially some of the ones that came out by Sega, like Grandia, Evolution 2, certain RPGs that I'm a big fan of. This is one that I've been meaning to dive into. I just haven't gotten into it yet. But a really great trade. Really great trade. It basically cost me nearly nothing to get this one. So this was a really good trade deal. Now we're going to get into some heavy hitters, some heavy hitters. The next three that I'm going to show you were all done with a local reseller who I've done a good amount of deals with so far, and I'm hoping to keep that relationship going. The first trade was this copy of Popful Mail. For those of you who follow the channel, you'll remember the weekend I got this. I was really excited. Traded away, again, a bunch of stuff. In fact, part of this trade was a copy of Super Metroid. I had traded away Super Metroid and a bunch of other games to get this copy of Popful Mail. But a lot of the games I traded away, I knew I would get back, like Super Metroid. Because again, when it comes to resellers, they're looking for stuff that will sell fast, that will sell easy. And usually it's those like common Nintendo games that collectors aren't really looking for a lot of the time. Those will be the games that resellers will really go for. So was able to do that deal. Didn't have to put up any cash. It was basically games for a game. And I got this copy of Popful Mail. Was totally psyched. One of the best trades that I've done ever. Not just this year, but one of my best trades. Not because of the value of the game, but because this is a very cool and fun action RPG game with great voice acting and cutscenes. I'm a huge fan of this game right here. So you got Popful Mail. Then the next game that I traded for with him was this copy of Lunar. So I actually got Lunar and the copy of Castlevania Lament of Innocence. I was able to do that deal with him. Again, just traded some more games away, right? My Wii collection is small because of how many Wii games I've traded out of my collection to get some of these. But I was okay with that because I knew that I would be able to find a lot of these Wii games again. So went ahead and made that trade happen and was able to get this copy of Lunar Silver Star. This isn't the embossed lettering that you would see typically on a lot of the Lunar or Working Designs games. There's like multiple versions of Lunar that came out for the Sega CD with like varying artwork, cover art, and like disc art. So this was kind of a unique one. I don't know if it really has any bearing on the value of the game, but overall, the game was in decent condition. It did have a crack in the back. I wasn't too upset about that. It is what it is. These jewel cases are super fragile. It's hard to find ones that are in good condition. There is a place, I think, on YouTube where you can buy a bunch of these like aftermarket, but they don't feel the same. Like when you compare like an aftermarket jewel case for the Sega CD to like a genuine Sega CD jewel case, there's just something about like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same. So I've kept this one in this case until I can find a genuine like old school Sega CD case that I could do the swap with. But all in all, this was a very good trade that I was able to do. And again, a lot of you guys remember this. I think this trade went down back in like March or something like that. All right, the next trade deal that we did was for this copy of Shining Wisdom on the Sega Saturn. Um, Shining Wisdom is a decent RPG. I've played a little bit of it. It's kind of like an action RPG in a sense. Plays a little bit like Zelda. If you think Link to the Past, that's the gameplay style. There are some like 3D elements to it. I think the music in games like Shining Wisdom, and even like all of these Working Designs games, they're just super nostalgic. Like if you like the I want to say the late 80s to the mid 90s, so like from 88 to like 95, that was an era. You know what I mean? Like that was a time, the early 90s, like that was a huge time for us culturally and everything like that. But like from 95, 96 to like 2000, that was a very, very interesting time as well. It I don't think it hits as hard as like the late 80s into the early 90s. But when you think about like the late 90s, like 98, 99, you think about not just gaming, but like music. You know, you got to remember that's like the era of like NSYNC, Britney Spears, Pink. That's the era of like, you know, the Matrix. And you got to think about what's going on in basketball. That's like the era of Kobe and Shaq. You know, this is post Jordan. This is, you know, ushering in, you know, to some degree, like this is, you know, right before like social media, any real forms of social media, like MySpace and everyone's connected and things like that. This was probably like the last disconnected era, I would say, in my opinion. At least that's just how I view it. So whenever I hear like the music that comes from these games, there's just something incredibly nostalgic about it that takes me back to that very specific time, that like 96 to 2000-ish era. And Shining Wisdom, when I played a little bit of this, there was just something really nostalgic about it. I thought it was cool. But this is another one that I traded for as well. So very, very cool game. Next up, we have some handhelds. We'll finish it off with a few handhelds. So next one we have here is Silent Hill Book of Memories. So this was part of the trade that I did for Silent Hill 3. So I actually picked both of these games up together at the same time as part of a multi-game trade. Book of Memories is cool. I played a little bit of it. You know, I haven't played a lot of my PS Vita, and what I have been playing on my PS Vita, oddly enough, is the Jack and Daxter trilogy. That game looks beautiful on the Vita. Like it looks really, really good. Like on the Vita, it's crystal clear. Like, but yeah, Silent Hill Book of Memories was another game that I traded for. Decent game, not mad at it. Glad to have it in the collection. And that again was with a local reseller. Then you have Blaster Master Boy on the original Game Boy. So this was one that I did with that same mom and pop shop where they take kind of like the lower end PS3 and 360 games. This was an extremely clean copy of Blaster Master Boy, which is an uncommon original Game Boy game, but this is a very interesting take on like a Bomberman style game. This game plays a little bit like Bomberman. If you've ever played Bomberman, I loved Bomberman on the Game Boy. I had that game. I had Bomberman 1 and 2. I think there were, I don't remember how many versions there were, but I played that game a ton. And Blaster Master Boy basically has that same gameplay style. Interesting game, fun one, not super common, but traded for this at a local mom and pop shop. And then I'll do these last two together since they were at the same store. So these last two, Mega Man Extreme and Pokemon Emerald. So these are two pretty cool Game Boy games. One Game Boy Color, obviously. So Mega Man Extreme, I learned about Mega Man Extreme a few summers ago. I didn't even realize that there was like a Mega Man X type of game for the Game Boy Color, because I was so used to just like the regular Mega Man on the original Game Boy. So they put an interesting take on it for the Game Boy Color with the Mega Man Extreme series, and I don't think it follows the same storyline particularly as like the Mega Man X storyline. But this is a very interesting game. One of the things I like about this is that you don't have to hold the shoot button for Mega Man to charge up his beam. As long as if you don't hold the button, he charges up automatically. I really like that. But that's a very cool game on the Game Boy Color. Was glad to get this one. And then Pokemon Emerald was another one that I picked up. So this was done at a local mom and pop game shop. And I picked these up at the same time that I traded away a good chunk of my PlayStation 4 games that I just didn't really need. Um, when you go to mom and pops, I'm not the type of person that likes to leave with store credit. Like, I don't like carrying around store credit. If I do a trade, I want to just get my value right then and there. So if there's no games there that I really want, I'll just find a game. And at first, I was almost tempted to pick up like a bunch of like, $5 to $10 PS2 games and PS1 games, but because the goal was to kind of eliminate numbers, I didn't want to trade in a bunch of PS1 games and then come back with the same number of PlayStation 1 or like Xbox 360 games. So I just burned a lot of the credit on this copy of Pokemon Emerald, which they had there for around 200 bucks. So burnt $200 in store credit on the Pokemon Emerald. Wasn't too mad about it. I know this game is, I know it's popular or whatever the case may be, but it was just one of the games that I traded for. So but yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the games that that I kind of wanted to showcase, just to kind of show anyone who follows the channel who maybe hasn't seen certain aspects of my collection, because maybe you've only watched the last 3 videos that I've put out. A lot of the heavy hitting games, the quote unquote grails, as you would say, or the bangers, as you would say, a lot of those games that I get through trades. I get a lot of those games through trades. It's rare that I get a very rare or expensive game from GameStop, which is why when I do, or which is why when I see those games on their website, I'm very quick to let my community know, because typically you'll be able to get those games at a good discount, at a good rate. So let me know what you guys think about these trades. I mean, I know you don't have all the details on the games that I traded away to get these games, but I can assure you that majority, if not all of the games that I've traded away to pick these games up were very common Nintendo games. I would say the most expensive game that I traded away in any of these trades was probably Super Metroid. Everything else was Wii games, you know, maybe certain GameCube doubles that I've had, in the past, certain GameCube games that I picked up, while they were cheap, or maybe certain GameCube games that I picked up during a buy two get one, and I have an extra copy, so I'll use that as trade bait. So that's kind of how I do it. And it's the best way for me based on my location and what's available to me where I'm at. So I know it's going to be different for you based on your location, where you're at. But let me know what some of your best trade deals have been so far this year, and what are some of the ways you get some of your harder to find or more rare or expensive games. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.